Welcome everyone. We are fortunate to be joined once again by Molly from Fantasy Flight Games, who has agreed to share some insights about her career and give us a few tips about getting into the industry. How long have you been working for Fantasy Flight Games and how long have you been a designer?
I've been working for Fantasy Flight Games for just over 7 years. I actually started in the sales department and I worked there for 4 years. And then 3 years ago or so, I started into product development and became a producer and game developer.
How did starting in sales help you transition into becoming a designer?
I knew a lot about how our games were marketed and sold and what our buyers and customers were looking for. So it really helped inform a lot of the decisions I made as a producer, because I could bring to the group project just saying, well, Target's looking for this, or, I know that when Barnes & Noble buys games, they buy this many. So we can think of that when we consider our print run. And I think that helped a lot in terms of, especially producing. Sometimes with development, that did help too, knowing, what kinds of games sold and if something was supposed to have mass appeal, like if we were being told we want to have something with more mass market appeal, what that entailed and what those buyers were looking for.
Is game design something you've always been interested in or always wanted to pursue?
No, I actually fell into working in the games industry. I was working at Marbles the Brain Store in the mall, and someone that I knew who worked at Fantasy Flight said there was a sales position open. And I didn't think I'd get it. I was convinced I wouldn't get it, but I applied anyway, and I got the job, and I loved it. I just love working here. And so after 4 years in sales, I'd sort of, peaked. I'd really hit where I wanted to go in terms of that department, and asked if I could, move over another role. And when one opened up, and they thought I was a good fit, and I moved into doing game producer.
What kinds of games did you play growing up?
I played the usual family board games, Monopoly and things like that. My brother and I also used to make up a lot of games ourselves with our own rules and lots of weird fantasy imaginations. We decided our playground was the Pound Puppies place where they worked. Like when the Pound Puppies went to work, they would go swing. And so that was what we did for hours. But a lot of that, I think, helped inform the choices I make and what I like and what I think is fun. I just like to have fun. Played a lot of video games too. I'm really good at losing to my brother. So that also helps with making sure that the person who's losing is having a good time too.
And what kinds of games do you enjoy playing now?
I like to play strategy games. I like party games, like anything with words. I really like hidden roles games, even though I'm really bad at lying. So my husband can always tell when I have the Cylon or if I am the spy or whatever it is. But I still really enjoy just those roles where you're trying to investigate something, whether it's like a party game and you're trying to figure out what role someone is, or if it's like a strategy game and you need to figure out where your next clue is coming from.
As a designer, is it important to play games that you don't enjoy?
I think doing things you don't enjoy is important for pretty much any industry, but particularly for the games industry. It's really good advice because you don't want to just not play things you don't think you're going to like. For one thing, it's making up your mind before you've even tested it. But for another, there might be a mechanic or something in that game that's you realize is really great, and maybe you hate the game and you don't like all the stuff around that mechanic, but that might inspire you to find a way to take that and move it into something else.
Would you advise anyone who wants to work as a designer to try and get some gaming industry experience, even if it isn't in design?
Industry knowledge is really important for any job in games. Whether you're in the sales department, you're working in a warehouse, if you are doing marketing, advertising, you need to be informed about the industry as a whole, and also about what games people are playing and what games are, on the hotness on BGG or things like that are always good to take a look at, because it's what is happening right now in your preferred industry. Specifically, when it came to my job in sales, it really helps with being a producer, because you need to know about budgets and understanding print runs and just where the games go after you make them. I think having a holistic approach to your career is always a good idea.
What kind of roles are available for someone who wants to get more industry experience?
It takes a lot of different roles to make games come to life, and so really anything that you can work at in the game industry is going to help inform you as a game designer, if that's what you want to be. But at the same time, I think that you want to make sure that you're understanding that there's not just the designers, there's the graphic designers, there's the art direction. You've got people who are working on making sure that the production materials are exactly what they need to be. A high quality game doesn't just come from the mind of one person. It really is a collaborative effort.
Outside your work, you are a comedian. Do you need to have a sense of humor to work in the games industry?
It sounds a little trite, but I think that having a sense of humor really helps with any job. That whole, you don't have to be crazy to work here, but it helps joke. I mean, I think if you can laugh at yourself, if you can laugh at the stress of a high stress job or just the things that go wrong, because something's going to go wrong, especially when you're making games. If you can just sort of like make a joke or take a breath, it really can help ease the tension, because a lot of times your group is looking to you, your team is looking to you as the designer, as the developer, as the producer, to explain to them that this isn't so bad and that we're going to survive it.
Which of your outside skills or talents helps you most with your day job?
I'm really great at communication, both written and speaking. I've done a lot of public speaking. I think a big part of that communication helps in terms of what I do as a producer. In terms of what I do when I develop games, I think just having that sense of just, a sense of humor, but also like a sense of fun. Like I really want to make sure that everyone's having a good time. And like I said, I mentioned previously that, you want to make sure whoever's losing is still having fun. And I think that I just want to be having fun, whatever I'm doing, even if it's just some silly thing I make up in my head so that stuffing envelopes isn't so bad. But I think that if you have a lot of attention to detail, if you are highly organized, those are really key things to working in a creative industry, because a lot of creative people tend to not have as many of those traits. And so if you can be the one who does, you'll stand out.
Can you tell us what a typical day is like for you?
In all honesty, I don't really have a typical day. I have so many different projects at once that my day-to-day, really the only constant is I might have meetings. I might be proofreading a rule book. I could be laying out cards or laying out diagrams, going over physical proofs from the factory to make sure that there aren't any errors. And sometimes proofreading other people's projects or helping write flavor text for other people's games. It's a really fun job because it changes so much.
Is it stressful being creative on demand?
It can be when you're blocked, but we have a great environment here. And so one of the things that we'll do is get up. You can walk around the buildings. It's a really nice area, lots of trees, and it's not too busy. So we'll get up and take walks, and that can really help you get unstuck. I suggest if you're having trouble with creativity, just do something else for 5 minutes, whether it's moving your body or going and just, looking outside sometimes can help. If you're not an outside person, just even watching a quick 5-minute music videos, anything that can just kind of jog your brain up.
What kinds of things do you do to unwind and take a break from gaming?
I'm a long distance runner. I've been doing it for 30 years. That is my number one way to relieve stress, especially after a long day of work. I also love to cook. Play a lot of video games, and my husband and I, we have 2 Bengal cats, and we like to, we have a big wheel, so we train them to run on the wheel and do tricks.
Is Fantasy Flight Games a weird and wacky place to work, like Google or Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory?
It might not be as wacky and weird as that. It's a lot of fun. There aren't really traps to teach children morality lessons, but otherwise, we have a good fun work environment. There's a lot of beautiful art on the walls. Everyone here is really fun and talented, and it's just, people are always smiling. It's nice to see.
How much time is spent working on your own game lines, and how much is spent helping other designers with theirs?
The majority of what I do is producing, which is kind of like a project management role, but I also do light development. So my time is spent mostly on my projects, but to me they're mine because I'm the producer assigned to them. I'm not necessarily doing the design work or the development work on them, but I would say that probably 70% of my time is on those projects to which I'm assigned, and 30% is helping people out in a pinch. We have a thing where we look at all of the projects that are going to go to the printer soon, and we all kind of have a peer review of that. So sometimes I'm on that committee. There's a lot that happens in day to day, so I think it's hard to say. I would say really though, my projects, the ones I consider mine, I do a lot of work on.
Advice given to new creative writers is to always keep a notebook handy. Can you tell us what kinds of tips or techniques you use to organize or prioritize your game ideas?
I don't get a lot of game ideas just on the fly myself. So when I have to be creative for a game, I'm usually sitting down and really putting attention to it. But in my comedy life, I do write jokes a lot. And so that notebook thing's a great idea. Something by your bedside so that if you wake up in the middle of the night, I use Siri on my phone a lot and will just be like, text jokes to myself. And the same would work for game ideas. I would say, especially if you're playing a game and something comes to you, make sure you get that written down, even if it's just, I liked this mechanic. So something quick so that you don't forget later.
You describe your work in the hobby game industry as the most fulfilling time of your life. Why is that?
I just love coming to work every day, honestly. It is really nice. I've worked in a lot of industries. I've worked a lot of different retail jobs. I was in food service for a long time. I have been a dancing waitress. I have been a pottery assistant. I have worked in the medical field, but this is a place where when you come to work, you're all working really hard to make something that's going to make people really happy. And that's just great. It's just something really great knowing that you just put something out into the world that someone's going to get as a gift, and it's going to make them so excited to get. That's so cool.
If you hadn't become a game developer and producer, what would your next best career choice be?
I would be a fiction editor, actually. I really love editing and proofreading, and I read a lot of fiction. I consume tons of books. I have a long commute, so I listen to audiobooks, and I would say I probably read 200 books a year. So I would love to be a fiction editor and get to read, first drafts of things and see another kind of creative process in action.
Should people who want to become game designers quit their day job?
Oh boy, so that's a hard question, and it's something everyone really needs to decide for themselves. Quitting your day job to do any creative field is going to be a tough row to hoe. But I will say that if you have any experience, if you can seek out hobbies that give you more opportunities to do that. For example, honestly, like a really great thing to do, FFG is always looking for playtesters. And if you go to our website, you can find ways to sign up to be a playtester and test games. And that's a really great way to get a peek at the way design iteration works and get some experience in that and find out if maybe that's something that you're interested in once you see the nitty-gritty.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Molly, and for all the insightful tips. We really appreciate it.